All right, we are live.
Sorry, there's a tornado running now going on.
Tornado warning. All right, that is a good start to our our broadcast here. So I am live with Yasmin Marrero. She is in Iowa, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So tornado warning. That is not good. Can we make it through this broadcast without you having to like duck and cover?
I'm hoping so. That is the plan.
All right, that's the plan. We want to keep you safe. So I'm Stacey Gordon. I am live again this morning with my guest, Yasmin Marrero. Stacey Gordon of Rework Work. We have been going live for the last couple of mornings, the last couple of weeks, actually, 8 a.m. Pacific. So if you have not watched the last couple of ones, you can go to my LinkedIn feed and watch there, or you can go to my website at reworkwork.com and get caught up with some of the great guests that we have had. But today we are focusing on Yasmin, who is a coach. And I really want to start off before we get right into it. I want her to introduce herself because I always do this. I'm so excited. I want to jump in and start talking. And you guys are like, who am I talking to? So Yasmin, let you introduce yourself.
I feel you on all those fronts. I am the same way. I get so excited and just get caught up. But hello, everyone. My name is Yasmin Marrero. I go by she, hers, and I am sitting in Iowa City, Iowa, by ways of New York. So I was born in the West Bronx, New York City. My mother is Dominican. My father is Puerto Rican. I'm first generation American, meaning I was the first of my family to shift the legacy of my family and to go the route that I did and change things. And I am a leadership and empowerment coach. That's how I go by, leadership and empowerment coaching. I facilitate leadership and empowerment workshops. And my love, my passion, my intention with all of my work is to help individuals unlock that agency and that confidence that's going to help them truly actualize a fulfilling life on all fronts.
That's awesome. So we actually connected through a mutual connection, Sonia. And what's really funny is we started talking and she was like, oh, I'm from the Bronx. And so I want to say like, oh, big up Bronx, but I can't because I lived in Brooklyn for so long. I can't do it. I'm sorry.
I get it. And we talked about this the first time we met of like, they're practically the same. We're not gonna put a high level emphasis on that, but like we fight about it because it's the same. The boroughs are exactly the same. Right?
I know. It's funny. So those of you that are on the East Coast or in New York, you know what we're talking about. And having, parents that are Puerto Rican and Dominican, that's a whole other conversation. We could talk about that all day.
Mm-hmm.
But I want you to tell us a little bit about what is empowerment coaching? What does that look like?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So empowerment coaching is, you can imagine, a lot of people like to use the image of therapy, right? In the sense that it's too intimate. It's an intimate conversation amongst two people, and that conversation provides almost a holding space to be vulnerable, to have these conversations, and really dive into what is my mindset, what is in my mind. The difference, though, where mental health is therapy, coaching is about being able to see yourself outside of yourself. And that's where the self-discovery piece comes in, to be able to become aware of like your mindsets, your behaviors, your beliefs outside of yourself, and then say, is this helping me in my life or is it stifling me? Is this true or not? Kind of interrogate it so that if it's not helping you, it allows you to then transform, shift, unlearn, and learn what is going to help you move forward in life. And coaching is that intimate connection. It's really about discovery and inquiry, where we're having a conversation, and throughout it, you are discovering more about yourself in this way that allows you to know more about yourself. It's the process of self-discovery, the process of becoming self-aware, the process of creating and crafting a life that you really know about, right? A lot of us are working on just grinding and hustling. And it's like, we've never stopped to be like, okay, wait a minute, what is it that I actually value and want?
Gotcha. Well, and I just put your website up on the screen there. So for those of you, I hope you can see that. We keep testing new things each week. So like I'm a newbie to live, and so this is just fun, like playing with different things to see what pops up.
I feel you.
um, so I think that's great to be able to talk about that. And I think I even want to go a little further because one of the conversations we started to have, and I was like, wait, let's save it for live, is, the difference between coaching and mentoring. Because when I put up the post about this, I was like, oh, we're going to talk coaching and mentoring. But then this morning, I thought about it and I said, well, wait, we're not going to talk coaching and mentoring because Yasmin's a coach and coaching is not mentoring, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what's the difference?
Yeah. So I was telling you that I believe that mentorship is what coaching should, like mentorship should be coaching, but it's watered down for what I think underrepresented communities. Mentorship is, okay, I have succeeded in my life in this way that I consider successful. And I'm going to show you, ask you, inquire on things based on my story that's going to help you also succeed by whatever parameters, whether it's my own or yours, that we set as success. And mentorship is really about, I was able to do it, you should too, right? And my whole thing is mentorship is good because you're able to see yourself in the people that mentor you. However, coaching needs to occur because we're all crafting and carving our own routes, right? We're all different. We all have intersectional identities. We all have different beliefs. We all have these different cultures and places we're coming from. And just because of the way that you define success or your mentors define success doesn't necessarily mean I define success as the same way. And coaching allows you to ask yourself the questions to discover, what is it that I value? What does success look like for me and feel like for me? And how can I get there, right? This is the goal. This is the vision. And how do I get there? And I think mentors oftentimes implement coaching, coaching questions, coaching inquiry. But for the most part, why you see so many underrepresented communities focusing on mentorship is because it's this idea of, if you have someone that is successful that you can see yourself in, then whatever they did, you should also do to get there. And it's like, all of our crafts, all of our paths are so different. You need the ability to ask yourself questions, reflect on what you're doing, reflect on your beliefs, and reflect on your environment, really, to know, am I going to get to that vision based on what I'm doing? And how can I get there, more importantly?
Right, right. No, that's great. And I think that part of it too, I mean, let's be real. Real talk, right? Is that part of it is mentorship is free.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Mentorship usually doesn't cost, but what it does cost is in time. And it's one of the reasons that mentorship is sometimes difficult to get because it does take time. You are asking someone to basically give of themselves freely, for
Mm-hmm.
free,
Mm-hmm.
when we are all really busy. And so it's one of the reasons that it is sometimes hard to find a mentor. And we get told so much about mentoring, but we don't really get told about coaching,
Yeah.
right?
And
We
we
don't.
told, and those that are mentors are told, you're doing a good deed, right? You're doing a good deed by inspiring someone based off of your story.
And
And
they
you can,
are, right? We don't want to say they're
yeah,
not because that's a
yeah,
great, it's a really great, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It adds to, right?
mm-hmm,
To what's out there. But I think it's only part of the story. And it's really important to realize that we get told so much about finding a mentor. We don't get told to find a coach.
yep,
We don't get told about the value of coaching, and we don't get told that, yeah, you need to pay for it
yep,
because there's such a value on it.
yep,
And so when you have the choice between coaching or mentoring, and most people don't even have the choice. But when you do have the choice between coaching and mentoring, you're like, well, why wouldn't I just get a mentor, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for so long, you don't even know what a coach is. You don't even understand when you grow up. Like you said, that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about our backgrounds, because when you grow up in Brooklyn, in Bronx, in any area where you are an underrepresented minority with, from sort of humble beginnings, no one's talking to you about a
Mm-mm.
coach.
Mm-mm. And I draw a lot of parallels to therapy, right? Now you're seeing all this access to therapy, all of this for people from underrepresented community, because we recognize how important mental health is and being mentally healthy is, and how much we struggle with it just based on everything and all that we go through. But before that, people were like, go talk to a counselor, right? Go talk to somebody. Like handing off what could be depression or could be even just struggles mentally to someone else that is there and that is accessible and that is free, right? And that's the same thing I feel is going on with mentorship and coaching, where it's like mentorship is that counselor or that person that, go talk to them, but they're not necessarily fully equipped with the skills, the questions, the ability to navigate the playing fields to help that person move past what they're struggling with.
Right, right. No, that's a really good point. And so I think that, that was the piece I wanted to make sure that we talk about, because I think it is important to understand how helpful coaching can be for you. And I think part of it too is that so I'll speak for me. I won't say we, I'll say I. I know that in my mind, I always thought coaching was one of these things where you had to get a coach and then you were going to be in this long sort of drawn out arrangement, and that you were going to have to be with this coach for months, and it was going to cost all of this money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not until recently that I realized that's not the case, right? You go to a coach, they help you through something. It might be a month, it might be 2 sessions, it might be whatever, right? But you
Mm-hmm.
get through the thing, and then once you get to that next level, then you figure out, do I need the same coach or do I need a different coach, right? To
Mm-hmm.
get to a different goal, or to get to that next level of where I'm trying to get to. So even in understanding that there are different types of coaches for different times in your life, for different goals you're trying to reach, and who have different skill sets, right? That are going to help you. Like, you wouldn't go to a career coach if you're trying to start a business. You wouldn't go to a life coach if you're, working on your career. Like, you've got career coaches, business coaches. So it's really important too to identify the type of coach. So what advice would you have for people on how to do that?
Yeah, my piece of advice is to sit down with yourself and ask, is this a what I am trying to actualize, what I'm trying to have become true for myself, something that is specific in a specific area of my life, right? So you pointed out business, you pointed out career, or is it something bigger, right? Is it something that I maybe need just a leadership empowerment coach? Is it something that I need someone who is a life coach? Is it someone that I need as a health coach? And that would be my first piece of advice. Sit down with yourself and ask yourself, is this something that is particular to a specific part of my life? Or is this something bigger than that and more interconnected with other pieces of my life? The other thing that I would say is that I'm of the belief, and I'm of the setup, the understanding that you can try out coaching, right? Like, for example, with me, I offer a free 45-minute discovery session. And if it doesn't work for me, if you're not looking and finding what you need in that case, in that situation, I can help you find someone else, or you can try it with other people, or you don't have to, stay with the person that you first meet. They aren't always going to be exactly what you need. And it doesn't hurt to just try it, right? See what it's like, see what it does. I definitely didn't know about coaching until I started my program in learning an organizational change to become an organizational psychologist. And that was at least a quarter after I was already past the first quarter of my life. Like that was so much further. And I had started out in neuroscience. So I did neuroscience research for 6 years and finished my first year in my doctorate program until I went through my own self-discovery process to recognize that's not where I will be fulfilled and what is a fulfilling life for me. And then I shifted, and then I found out what coaching was. So try things out, figure out, there's so much out there that we're not aware of and don't have access to necessarily, that when you do have access and you see it and you can try it, it doesn't hurt to. So go for
and
it.
I think that's where mentoring can come in, right? Like to help you pinpoint what you don't know so that you can then go get an expert to help you. So, I always think about like, it's that same thing. And people, when I say this, and I think when you even say like, I didn't know what coaching was, I know there are people going, really? But it's the same as, when I started off, I started in law school saying that I'm going to law school because I want to start a business. And nobody along the way said to me, you might want to try an MBA instead of law school. Nobody said that, right? A mentor would have been helpful in that situation to help direct me, right? And go, here's some other options you might want to look at, right? Here's some other things you might want to try. And so what people really don't understand is that when you grow up in a small microcosm, especially one of lack, right? And where people don't have information, if you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know all of the different careers that are available to you, you don't know all of the different paths that are available to you. I was reading, there were all these stories of people who talk about their counselors, right, in high school, telling them, oh, you should just take this course to be an electrician and just go do this, or you'll just be a janitor for the rest of your life, right? And not even giving them, like, those are people who should have been mentoring, right? At least maybe not mentoring, but they're in a role to guide, and failed those students. Because what we're mostly told when you come from these, lower socioeconomic communities is that you can be a teacher, you can be a police officer, you can be a nurse, and what else you got? Like, like that's pretty much the professions.
And my family, my mom came to the United States when she was 19. So it was doctor, lawyer, or president. And we didn't know how to get to any of them, right? For me, it was all those three. Like, officer wasn't even a thing, right? You were doctor, lawyer, president. We too good to be a teacher, right? Like, that's what my professions were. So I feel you on all of that.
Yeah. So I think that's where I look at, it's so important for us. I feel like we should be mentoring children, right? Because they need to know that the world is bigger than the tiny little bubble that they're in. And then when you mentor children and help them get to a space when they're in college where they can start to see what the world looks like, then they understand, and it's time to get a coach, right?
Yeah.
Like, get them to those next levels. At least that's sort of how I break it up in my mind, because, and I understand in the workplace, we talk about mentorship. And that, I think, is a different kind of, I think we almost need a different word for it, because it's not even so much mentorship as it's really guiding somebody, right, through the path. Because in that instance, in the workplace, yes, you are the senior vice president of marketing, and I'm a marketing assistant, and I want to get to senior vice president of marketing. So understanding that is a very specific career, even company focused type of conversation, right? Which is very different than being sort of having a larger external conversation about it.
And I think that there's also, yes, I agree with everything you said, but I think there also needs to be mentorship with a taste of coaching. And when I say a taste of coaching, it is, you're not just talking at and guiding someone. You're also helping them. You're asking them questions to help them open up their minds, right? So when I was younger, people ask me, so what do you want to be when you grow up, right? It's like, I don't even know the range of what I want to be when I grow up. I don't know many careers. I don't have many models in my life. And people would always ask me, okay, well, then what are you good at, right? And I would say math and science. Oh, you're going to be a doctor, right? But if someone were to instead ask me, what did you enjoy in your classes? What was the thing that made you excited, right? Was it talking about those platonic plates that are moving on the world? Was it this? Was it that? That helps the child or the person or the adolescent or even adults say, I did like that, right? I do like to be in community. For myself, when I was in that doctorate program, um, my boyfriend told me, he basically told me, like, you're unhappy. And I was like, this is not about happiness, right? This is about getting my family out the hood, right? Like, this is about being the success, the star that my family has always wanted me to be. And that
Right.
society along the route, right? My mentors wanted me to be as an Afro-Caribbean woman, right? And it wasn't until that moment that I was like, wait a minute. And I heard myself and I was like, is this really what I want my life to be around? And I was like, where do I feel at home? Where do I see myself really being excited to be? And that is in workshops and facilitation as well as coaching, right? The
Yeah.
space that's as a coach, I do both. I don't think I mentioned that, right? I do one-on-one coaching, but I also love these communities, building community circles and also doing leadership and empowerment workshops because that's the setting that I feel most alive. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until I asked myself that question that I was even able to find the answer. And so
Yeah.
I think mentorship with a taste of those questions, a taste of those inquiries, be curious, be vulnerable more than anything is what we all need. And it's often lacking when
I
it comes
totally agree
to.
with that. And I think too, like, I know we're supposed to be talking about adults here, but something you just said made me really think. It reminds me so much. It's like from a as a child, like I even experience it with my kids now because people say, well, they, as you said, they ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right? That's
Mm-hmm.
always the question we ask. Every single one of us has asked it at least once to a child, right? And I'm going to say, let's ask a different question rather than asking them what they want to be, because as you said, they don't know, right? They have no
Mm-hmm.
idea what the world looks like. Why not give them a couple of suggestions? What,
Mm-hmm.
instead of saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? You could say, have you considered being a scientist? Did you know that there is you could have a career in X, right?
Yeah,
And give them maybe two different choices, right? Or not choices, but just two samples. And every time you see that child, you could give them two more. And
exactly.
it broadens their world because now they might go look and go, oh, I didn't know that such a thing existed. You know, like there were so many different types of jobs out there. Like when I worked as a financial advisor for a while, I did not know
Mm-hmm.
in my mind that I was smart enough to be a financial advisor because I thought financial advisors were only the people who were these wealth managers who dealt with
Oh.
the celebrities who had millions of dollars under advisement. That was all I knew about financial advising. And it wasn't until I was well past my college years that I
Mm-hmm.
understood the various levels and what that looks like, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so those kinds of conversations with kids, I think, would be life changing.
Yeah, Arson in LinkedIn also said that is something as a mentor I'm trying to teach students. What are the most important things to know and how to invest in your skills? That's the question to ask. Like, what do you actually think
Right.
is important? And I think, like you said, like there's also that belief, right? At that moment that you're like, I can't be that, right? Because of what I think about it. That's
Right.
also another thing. Those are inherited beliefs. Those are internalizations, not only about the identities that we have, but also what we're capable of in this society, in this world.
Yeah.
Um, and
Well,
that's
and I
what
think
coaching kind
also
of helps you
too,
break down.
Simone mentioned this was something we were going to bring up as well. It's like,
Yeah.
the fact that there are so few women of color, especially, but just and men of color who are coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's hard to sometimes to find those individuals.
Yep.
And then you also, again, you have this thought in your head, you think it's going to be so expensive. You don't really know what it
Mm-hmm.
costs. And at the end of the day, you always say you want to look at what are you going to gain out of this, I was going to say transaction, but not so much transaction, but out of this experience,
Investment.
right? In an
Mm-hmm.
investment. And what are you going to gain out of it? And then is it worth the money that you're going to invest into it, right? So,
Yeah.
and investing in yourself is important. So I think that's important too, part of it is finding coaches of color. Like you said, Yasmin, you might not be everyone's cup of tea, but you can still go to her and ask her, because I bet you she's got 10 other, African American coaches on speed dial that she could refer you to. So, like, that's the other piece, is we feel like we have to do this by ourselves and we have to go it alone. We don't. You can reach out to somebody and say, I'm not sure that you're the right coach for me,
Mm-hmm.
but is there a coaching circle? Are there resources you could, point me towards? Are
Yeah.
there referrals? Can you refer someone to me? And so I think that that's really important to start to do that too, to, figure out like where we're going as we move through this.
Yeah. And I think you're hitting also on this other point of, and we talked about this briefly, of like, what do we spend our money on, right? And
Mm-hmm.
should we spend our money, right? Because a lot of people, I'll give an example. So I work with all different types of people of all different identities and intersections. And I had a inquiry call, a discovery session with a white woman, and she was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go. I loved talking to you. I love chatting to you, but I want to see if the professional development funds that my organization provides can be used for this." Right? She wasn't thinking about her paying for it. She was thinking about the funds that she has access to paying for it.
Right.
Whereas I know a Black woman who's also in an organization who I'm working with, never even occurred to her that the professional development fund that she has access to, that they tell her is just for credentials or certifications or anything, could be used towards coaching. So that's the other thing I think about a lot of, like, well, when we reach these certain levels in life and in these certain levels in our organizations, what opens up for us in the sense of coaching, in the sense of resources, in the sense of access,
Right.
that we necessarily don't, we should investigate about, and we should ask about, that other people are maybe already aware of.
Right.
And for me, I work with a lot of women of color. I work with a lot of people who are first generation Americans, meaning changing the legacy of their family, right? And some of them can't afford coaching. And I'm like, well, that's such a deeper element of, like, you don't have the dispensable funds to use in this way. It's because of the privileges and the access that you have. How can we shift this to make it work for you? Like, I'm working on building out this fund specifically to sponsor 2 people, maybe a Black woman that's an entrepreneur, or a first generation American who is in a graduate program in STEM and is the first person of their family doing it, right? To help them have access to coaching, right? Because
Right.
that's the barrier that we have necessarily. Coaching
I
is
think that
so
that's a
limited. Go ahead.
It's a really good point too, for, we want to go back to all these organizations who are making these statements, right, about Black Lives Matter. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, you want to put your money where your mouth is, you could contribute to a fund, right?
Yep.
You could send some of your employees to coaching. You could make sure they have access to a professional development fund so that they
Mm-hmm.
have the funds to go get the resources that they need, right? Like, those are things you can do. You can open those up, because sometimes you have the fund, but you only give it to your high potentials. How do you get on that high potential list? I swear, every time I talk
Exactly.
to an organization and they start talking to me about high potentials, I'm like, can I please talk to the committee that came up with the list of people who you deem as high potentials, because
Exactly.
we need to talk.
Exactly. And leadership, right? Because the only reason I had access to be able to even do anything in my life was because from the get, I was labeled as having leadership qualities. And
Yeah.
leadership qualities, who knows what that really means? For me, everyone has leadership qualities. Everyone has a vision and everyone has the ability to guide people to a vision, whether it's their own vision or it's someone else's vision. Everyone has leadership qualities, but we
Yeah.
use it as like, oh, we're going to save this for our leaders. We're going to use this towards the leadership, the people who qualify as leaders in our organization because they look like a certain person or they act like a certain person. And it's like, how do we break that mold and build access? Because ultimately you are, whether you're conscious of it or not, right? Talking about unconscious bias. Whether you're conscious of it or not, you believe leadership looks like a certain person. You believe high potential looks like a certain person in your organization. And so what is it that really looks like for you? Who is that person really for you? And how do we break that mold to find all the people who are different and still are high potential and still are leaderships and all of these things?
No, that's a really great point. And thank you for mentioning unconscious bias because I forgot to put in a plug for the unconscious bias course. If you haven't watched it yet, it's free. Go watch it. It's available on LinkedIn, and I think we'll drop a link in a moment for it. So definitely want you to check that out. And so I wanted to say thank you, Yasmin, because this has been a great conversation. I'm glad that you made it through the tornado warnings and that you're safe.
Thank you.
I was joking with a friend who's in New York, and I guess they were having a hurricane, a gale force or something yesterday. And I said, you know what? I'm so done with that. And she's like, you know what? You got earthquakes, so shut up.
Exactly. I don't think I can deal with that, honey. Oh no.
Yeah, so I really appreciate you joining today. I appreciate everyone who was able to join in today. And we will go ahead and post these so you can check Yasmin's LinkedIn, connect with her if you are not connected with her, connect with me if you're somehow not connected with me. And I will also go ahead and post the link to the unconscious bias course on my LinkedIn page. It's actually on my in my LinkedIn profile, in my LinkedIn profile as well. So hope that you'll get a chance to look at that. And so again, thank you, Yasmin. I appreciate you joining us today. And I appreciate everyone who joined in from all around the world. I'm actually missing my guy from, I know there's a couple of people who usually join in and say, hi, I'm here from Mali. I didn't see him today, so.
Yeah, I was also going to say, I know there were some questions in the comments and in the chat that weren't necessarily answered on the live. Feel free to reach out. Feel free to message me and we can chat about that. I know Simone had asked a question about credentials. As I mentioned before, I am here and available for you to invest in you, right? And if you are interested, we can talk about coaching. If you're not interested about coaching, we can talk about something else. But thank you, Stacey, for this opportunity. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Thank you. And we'll see you all back next week, 8 a.m. Pacific.
Yeah. See ya.